Well, good morning, magandang umaga, and welcome to today's episode of My PI Dream. This is Tuesday, April, what is it, April 30? I think it's April 30 today. Just an update. We're going to do some updates today. Today's not going to be a DIY type of a day, but it's going to be a update on some of the things that we've ordered to send back over to the Philippines. And some perspective. After doing this for a couple of years, I'm going to change. I believe I'm going to do a change up on some of my recommendations. A lot of people ask questions all the time in the comment section, and we're going to talk about that as well. We're going to do a review of things that I recommended in the past, and after a little bit of more experience, we might talk about maybe a better way of doing things. Well, let's go ahead and get today started. So without further delay, let's get today's video underway. Well, as you can see, it's kind of a mess back here. This part of the yard kind of gets neglected, and this is the one that's deep into the woods. It's into the wetlands on the back side of the house. So this morning, the task at hand for us is to kind of get this cleaned up, because this is a really lovely place, both in the morning, in the afternoon, and in the evening, to spend time, relaxing time with a cup of coffee, or maybe a glass of wine back here in the evening time. We have some lights back over here. We have a pond, but the small pond that we have, has been neglected over the winter time, and it is full. It is full of debris, so it needs to be cleaned out. We need to see if I can get the waterfall working again on it, so we can kind of enjoy this part of the backyard, and that's what I'm going to work on today. Now, when I get done with that, we're going to sit down back here, we're going to relax, and we're going to talk, like I said in the intro today, we're going to talk a little bit about reevaluating some of the suggestions and recommendations that I did in earlier videos if you are relocating overseas, and in particularly to the Philippines, about different things, about costs, about appliances to bring, about whether to do things like transformers. We're going to talk a little bit about that a little bit more in just a little bit. Well, let me go ahead and get this area kind of cleaned up. I got to do some trimming back here. Not only is it unsightly when everything is like this, it also is a place for snakes to hide. I didn't tell Ness, but yesterday there was a water moccasin. There was a water moccasin back here.
What?
Yeah, there was a water moccasin back here, and they're very dangerous, but they're predominant. They like the wetlands back here. But I managed to rid the varmint from here, so she doesn't have to worry about that. But that's a fact of life of living in this part of the coastal community in Charleston, South Carolina. Well, anyway, let's go ahead and get some. You're gonna help me with cleaning today?
Yes.
Okay. Well, we're gonna do some cleaning, and Well, that's done. I gotta tell you, that was quite a job. Now, I am just in the cleaning stage right now. I got all that murky water, and it was really, really bad. But it's like that every single year. When you don't touch a pond for a year, this is what happened. You see, this is the woods back here, the forest, the jungle, the marsh, and what all these things all year round, they fall down inside it. We don't have fish back here anymore. This was the predecessor to the big koi pond over there, and we had a tiny filter, which is this little filter over here. And it really doesn't do very much, but it worked for us for the time being. As you start learning things and you start growing with your hobbies, then you learn different methods of doing filtration and things like that. It's actually easier to clean that huge 5,000 gallon, 20,000 liter, that pond over there than it is this little 50 gallon pond right here. Because all I have to do is I have to go in the life support system and I just do a back flush of the filter inside there. It dumps all the water into the woods, the dirty water, cleans the filter, and I have the settlement tank. I just pull stuff and rinse off the little filtration system that's inside there. And oh, one more thing, and the skimmer. I pull that out. There's a little filter inside there, and I clean the filter, and boom, it's done. But that's for 5,000 gallons, and it's easier. It's so simple to do that. Anyway, you live and you learn. So let me show you something. Another thing I was concerned about. Remember, I talked about that snake earlier. Well, normally at the end of the year, when we come back on vacation back here to the US and I go to clean out this pond back here, I just go and I stick my hand down and I start pulling out all that murky debris. I don't think about what's in the bottom because I keep thinking there's no way anything can live in the bottom of this. But they can. There are things that can live in there. And case in point, we left fish inside here, goldfish inside there after a year, and we came back and there's still goldfish there. I don't know how they possibly live because it's like quicksand mud inside there, but they lived, they survived. And there's aquatic life like frogs, and there's frogs. I just pulled out a frog out of there. But something I never thought about before, there could possibly be a snake inside there. And let me show you what I found on the top of the pond when I started cleaning, which made me readdressed going back into sticking my hand down inside that pond. And that's a snake skin, and that's what snakes do. They shed their skin during the year. They go into they find places, usually rocks or something that can pull off, and then they shed and they have a new layer of skin. And that's what I found inside there. So when I saw that and I pulled that out, I'm like, I think we're going to use a bucket this time with a shovel to get most of this debris out. And then once I got down very close to the bottom, I was able to use my hand. So anyway, that's a tip. If you're cleaning out something in the wilderness and you do have indigenous poisonous snakes like we do here in the South, make sure you take the time to make sure there aren't any of those little creatures down inside your pond when you're doing a clean. So I still have some more actions to do here. I'm going to do a blow off with the blower of this area right here. I think Ness and I are going to sit back here and we're probably going to enjoy lunch in the back patio. Alright, well, as you can see, the pond is cleaned out. There is water circulating, but the pipe that goes to the waterfall, it's broken, and it's broken in a bad spot. It's broken underneath. It's broken underneath all the rock formation and everything. So that's going to be a major effort if I want to replace that and get the waterfall working again. But we have water that's just recirculating. That will keep the mosquitoes out of there at least. So that is a project, but a project for another day, not today. Ness brought out some lunch. We're going to sit back here and we're going to talk about those topics of discussion that I said earlier that I wanted to talk about today. There are 3 items I want to talk about, and we'll talk about it over lunch. Okay, well, there are 3 things that I wanted to talk about today. I have 2 updates, and I have a discussion that I want to talk about converters or transformers going from 220 to 110 for 110 devices that you would normally find like we have here in North America. But the updates, let's go ahead and talk with each one of the updates first. Remember, we ordered the popcorn machine. And I just did a follow-up on it yesterday. And the popcorn machine that I ordered is a 220-volt popcorn machine. It's an export version. So I did a follow-up yesterday, and I'm glad I did a follow-up, because when I called in and I gave them the order number for the specific model that I wanted, they called back a model that wasn't on our order list, and it was totally different. It was a neat popcorn machine, but it wasn't the one that we ordered, because we have a base that we're going to send along that we already have that's a certain color, and that's why we needed this certain color popcorn machine. And the one that they were going to, and I think they were in the process of building it, but I'm glad something told me to call them up. I called them up, and I said, stop production, stop production. So we got it all straightened out, and I got an email confirmation back from the fine folks at the company that are building the popcorn machine. Again, we'll talk about that. We'll talk about the company that's building it, and we will talk about our experience once we receive that. I think they said it's in the process of being built now, and it should ship out in a couple days, and we'll get a tracking number on the shipment of the popcorn machine for Villa Feliz. Also, I ordered those specialty cables, remember, to do the extension for the generator in the basement. Those GX20 connectors, the extension cable that will take us to the wall. We'll have a finished connection into the wall that takes us over to the automatic transfer switch that's in the different part of the basement garage. And I did a follow-up on that as well, and it's already shipped. They gave me a shipping tracking number, and but it's still somewhere in China right now. So as soon as it gets into the U.S. system, it's going to be sent to U.S. Postal Service. We will do another update on that, and I will show you that when we receive it as well. Okay, that's 2 items that I wanted to talk about for updating. The third item is actually kind of extensive. We're going to talk a little bit about transformers. Now, one of the topics that comes up consistently on the comment section on our vlog is the question about those folks who live overseas in a 110, 120 volt AC environment, and they are moving to the Philippines. They always ask me, James, should I bring my 110 appliance or my 110 tool or whatever device that they have that runs on 110, 120 volt AC, and bring it to the Philippines? Well, as you know, the Philippines is 220 volts. It's 220 volts, 60 cycles. We're 110, 120 volt, 60 cycles here in the United States. And it's different for different parts around the world. Australia, New Zealand, Canada, United Kingdom, all over Europe, different parts of Asia, different parts around the world. And it usually ranges, most of the time it's going to be one of 3 voltages: 120 volt, 220 volt, or 240 volt. And a lot of systems that you buy, especially electronics that have to do with stereo components, a lot of these things these days, they're multi-voltage. They're either auto-sensing, where you plug them in anywhere and they will detect the voltage, and they will adjust anywhere between 110 volts and 240 volts. Or if they don't work like that, on the back of some of your stereo components or televisions, there will be a switch on there. It'll be a selector, and you need to select whether it's 120 volt, 220, or 240 volt on the back of it. Because if you don't select it and you plug it in, and it's not an auto sensing type of a device for multi-voltage, you take a risk, and this most surely will happen, is you will burn up the device if you're going from a 110 to a higher voltage, say like a 110, 120 volt appliance here in the US, and you plug it into 220 or 240, it will fry the internal components of that device. Now, what they make around the world, they make transformers. Now let's go back to that initial question many of you ask. Should I bring my 110 component, my 110, 120 component over to the Philippines or to another part of the world? Well, that's totally up to you. And that has to do, if you cannot get that item in a foreign country and you are very attached to that device, then the answer is probably logically yes, you should bring it over and you should use a transformer, because there are things that you cannot buy that are only built to one specification in different parts of the world. My original recommendation was for you to buy all of your components in the Philippines. And we're talking specifically about the Philippines because that's where we moved to. Now, some of those things that you want are not available in the Philippines and are not available with a 220 volt configuration. So again, if you want to use that device, then you bring your device over, your 110, 120 device over to the Philippines and use a transformer. Now let's talk about the pros and cons of transformers. The pros and cons. First of all, some of them are quite expensive. Now if you have a device that's a high wattage, something like hair dryers, a blender, a very high heavy duty blender, a coffee machine, a stove, anything with an element, an air conditioning unit, anything that is like 1,500 watts, 1,500 watts or above, maybe up to 2,000, 3,000. Air conditioning units can go up to around 5,000 watts. Now, if you bring those over, those types of transformers are extremely expensive. You can literally spend over the equivalent of $1,000 on a high, heavy-duty, high wattage transformer. Now, for most people, you can buy a transformer that is something in the range of 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, or maybe 5,000 watts. And you can pay for something like in that range, anywhere from maybe the equivalent of about $60 up to about maybe about $200. And it all depends on the quality and what you're looking for, whether you want isolation, whether you want quietness, whether you want something that's durable and it's going to last a long time. You can actually pay a lot more. But these things take up a lot of space, and that's what I talked to Ness about, is she wants to bring over some of her kitchen appliances. Well, if you do something, most of the kitchen appliances that we would use, we would probably use about a 3,000 watt transformer. And most of those will take up an area probably about 9 or 10 inches wide by about 9 or 10 inches deep by probably around 5 or 6 inches high. They're pretty big devices, and they weigh a pretty good weight, and maybe around 25, 30, 35 pounds, something like that, for those kind of devices. Now, my original recommendation, remember, was try to buy whatever you possibly can in the Philippines or whatever foreign country that you go to, so that you only have one standard and you don't have to worry about transformer. Now, believe it or not, a transformer will actually use electricity even if you have nothing plugged into it. It is dispersing, it's displacing electricity. So if you plug a 3,000 watt transformer into the wall and you're not using it, say you keep it running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, it is using electricity to be able to dissipate that electricity to go from 110 to 220 or 220 to 110. And there are different efficiency ratings on transformers. Now, a recommendation for a second option, you can build your house if you have enough foresight in the very beginning when you're constructing and designing your house. You can actually put a circuit inside your house. Wherever your circuit breaker panel is, you can set up a transformer to go through a specific circuit breaker to only feed electricity on certain service outlets inside your house. And I would make sure that I would mark that extremely well, that's a 120 or 110, however you want to put it on there, outlet, so that you don't make a mistake putting a electrical component that's 110 into a 220 outlet. And it can still happen if you're not watching what you're doing. So that you can build that into your build. You can also, if you wanted to, if you have something like inside your kitchen, you could build a certain portion of your kitchen cabinetry to where you have a component like the transformer. You can sit that inside there, and while they're building the house, inside the wall to that specific outlet, so it's hidden, so you don't see the box and you don't see wires hanging outside on a countertop or anything like that. You could build that into a hidden place as well. So these are things that you need to take into consideration. Or you can do, which is what we are going to do, because we found out there are a couple of components that we want, a couple of appliances that we want to bring now, portable transformer that we'll bring out when we want to use that device, use the device, and then we'll put it away. Or maybe we can find a hidden spot where we can set up an outlet, again, a switched outlet, which basically, when I say a switched outlet, when you turn the electricity on to the switch, it will feed the input power to the transformer, which will feed the output power to a service outlet. Now, with that configuration, you can turn off that service outlet when it's not needed and not use or waste electricity from that transformer when it's not running. Now another question that comes up now and then is, what size transformer do I need? Well, there's roughly two options that I go by when I'm calculating what size transformer that I need. So you have to have a little bit of overhead. If you have something that is, say, a 1,000 watt, consumes 1,000 watts, you can't use a 1,000 watt transformer, and that's what a lot of people do. And what's going to end up happening is you're going to degrade your transformer, and has a potential to degrade or damage the device that you're plugging into that transformer. So there are generally two rules of thumb that I go by. And first rule of thumb that I go by is the power consumption, the maximum power consumption of the appliance times 1.5. So if you have something like an appliance that will take 1,000 watts, maybe a blender, you want to make sure that you have a transformer that will handle up to 1,500. Now most of them are rated at 1,000, 2,000, 3,000, 5,000, like I said earlier. So you would probably get a 2,000 watt transformer to handle that 1,000 watt blender. Now another rule of thumb that you can go by is the power in AC, whatever the AC rating is on it. So if you have a 120 volt appliance, what you do is you multiply that times the peak amperage of the device or the appliance that you're using, which is current when I say the amperage, and they are rated in amps. So as an example of that type of a calculation, let's take a device that runs at 10 amps. Again, some blenders run at 10 amps. And you have a 120 volt appliance. So you multiply 120 volts AC times 10 amps, and that will give you 1,200 watt transformer that you're going to need. Again, if it's a 1,200 watt transformer and you only have an option of a 1,000 or 2,000, then you would choose the 2,000 watt transformer. Now I hope that makes it clear for you, and if you have any questions, just ask those questions in the comment section of today's episode, and I'll try to clarify any questions that you might have. So we're going to go ahead and eat lunch back here. Our soup's getting cold. We got some sandwiches, and we got some this is lemonade, I think. Lemonade. Yeah. We're going to enjoy the nice quietness back here in the park. We'll be back in just a little. For today's episode, what did we talk about today? We talked a little bit about two upcoming shipments, orders that we have that we plan on bringing with us to our home at Villa Feliz in the Philippines. And we also talked about transformers, step up, step down transformers, why you would want to use a transformer. We talked a little bit about considerations for voltage, and so that you get the proper size transformer if you do bring it with you overseas. And we also talked a little bit about how you could incorporate your transformer or make your modifications in your home if you catch it early enough. And if not, again, you could always use a portable transformer. But before we close for today, we have one birthday shout out. Now, this birthday shout out is belated. It's for yesterday. It's for April 29th. Sherry Parrish called in, and she said she wanted to make sure we have a happy birthday shout out for her husband John Parrish, who turned 70 yesterday. So anyway, to you, John, we want to wish you a happy birthday. Again, that's it for today's episode. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you found it informative. And if you did, please give us a thumbs up. Please share, and if you have not subscribed, just click on that little My PI Dream heart in the bottom right hand side of your screen. You will be subscribed, and you will be notified the next time we upload a new video. So until such time, you have a wonderful and blessed day.